you know, they win a Nobel Prize or two every year, but there's a lot of money being invested everywhere in research and development and into science, particularly in the People's Republic of China and in Korea. There's been concern about this at the highest level. There's been commitment of new funds, that famous 10 trillion yen, investment fund. And I thought it's very important for all of us to sort of get an update from people who are actually dealing with the science, not some theoretical politician or theoretical policymaker, but really hearing it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We've got a fantastic panel here. In no particular order, Kotani sensei, a very distinguished Japanese mathematician. I understand you're a topologist. There you go. So you read the exact details here. Long time associated with Tohoku University and now at Riken, which many of you know is sort of the Japanese equivalent of the Max Planck Institute, here really at the cutting edge of research and interdisciplinary research. Then we've got Nick, who is, from OIST. He was the head of research there, and, originally his, professional ambition is in genomics, right? Then, we've got also Watanabe-san, who is not a scientist in her own right, but she's a policymaker. She serves as the advisor to the Chiba Institute of Technology, which, by the way, is an amazing school. When you look at the data, you actually find that they have 100% success rate of people getting jobs, right? Even before they even finish at that institute. So very practical insight into policymaking and the transition from science into business, into the economy. And then last but not least, we've got Kasahara-san, who comes from the private sector originally with Sony Corporation and Sony Research there. He does fascinating research now at OIST on, cybernetics. Cybernetic humans. So he tried to explain to me that he is working on trying to morph you with me and the computer. And somehow this will take over the world, according to him. But now, to get things going, Nick has very kindly, prepared a little overview. We'll let Nick talk for about 15, 20 minutes with some data and some slides.
Well, thank you very much, Jesper, for the kind introduction. And thank you to the Asia Society for hosting this discussion today. I'm delighted to share the floor with such distinguished panelists today. And what I'd like to do is, in the next 10, 12 minutes, is really to give an introduction to look at what the data is telling us about the status of the Japanese research ecosystem. What are its strengths, and then what are its challenges? So, needless to say, 2025 has been a great year for Japanese science. 2 Nobel Prizes in immunology, in chemistry, and this is no fluke, right? It happens because we've got amazing research going on throughout Japan, particularly in materials sciences, in chemistry, in neutrino physics, stem cell biology, immunology, and so on. And all of this is supported by the government's recognition that research is a strategically important activity. So the Takaichi government just started, is underpinning all of this with the 10 trillion university fund. It's launching the Global Startup Campus, which we'll talk about in a little while. And it's prioritizing support to 17 sectors, many of which are involved in basic research. So what we've got here is great capability and government support. A lot of companies would envy this position. And just to frame our discussion, I'd like to discuss what creates a top world-class research environment. And it's not just one thing. You've got to have the talent pipeline, so you've got young people coming through. You need your international networks so that you have this exchange of ideas and knowledge. You need world-class infrastructure so you can do your complex science. You need the culture and governance to allow people to take on challenging problems and take risks. And then all of this has to be underpinned by stable long-term funding and an openness to transmit the knowledge you discover from the lab out into society. The critical point here is that it's interconnected. It's not just any one factor that affects this entire ecosystem. So with this framework, let's look at where Japan stands. And here we start to see some uncomfortable data. So Japan's share of the most impactful research publications, and the impact here in an academic sense, I'm talking about what's typically measured globally through the publication in high impact influential journals. And here the uncomfortable truth is that Japan's ranking has been steadily dropping from 5th globally to 13th. And we're now right behind, unfortunately, Korea, Spain, and even Iran. And then on the right, you've got the absolute numbers of such publications. And you can see the clear success stories over the past 20 years are China, with that exponential growth, and then quite stealthy success is South Korea.
Nick, for 30 seconds, the top 10% papers, what does that mean?
So top 10%, so if you consider all the papers that you publish in the world as 100%, one of the measures of influence of a paper is how many other people cite you when they publish. So the top 10% papers are the top 10% of papers that other people cite.
So it's not just clicks and views,
it's not
actual
views.
Input into someone else's research.
Someone else's research,
okay.
Or patents.
Yep.
Now, of course, KPIs aren't everything. Okay, and of course, Japan continues to do amazing research, but KPIs do generate headlines, and it's what draw people's attention, and this is what influences who comes to your country to do research with you, who collaborates with you, and how you get funding. And this is an aspect of the ecosystem that touches me personally as a scientist who trains young PhD students and postdocs, so this touches me deeply, is the need for talent. And I feel that Japan, here we're facing quite a crisis. So in the top half, you see here a plot of the number of PhD students that enroll in a PhD program. And you can see there's this rapid rise through the 80s and 90s, peaked in 2003, and then a steady decline in numbers over the past 20 years. Now, why does this matter? Well, if you look at the plot in the bottom, what you here have is the number of PhDs per million in different countries. Japan has 120 PhDs per million. Competing countries, the US, Germany, France, UK, Korea, between 300 PhDs and 350 per million. So Japan has less than half the proportion of highly trained, talented people compared with our competitors. And then there's also a difficulty or a challenge with the career structure. So typically in an international context, you finish a PhD at about 26 to 30. You do a postdoc, which is a research position in someone's lab. And then by your early 30s or mid-30s, you're independent. You're a tenure-track professor, you strike out on your own, and you establish your own research program. What happens in Japan? Well, you do a PhD about the same time, But then you have many periods of fixed-term contracts, 3 years here, 5 years there, 4 years in someone else's lab. And maybe when you're in your 40s, you get an independent, tenured position with a permanent contract. And this is an uncomfortable truth. It's a 10-year gap between Japan and some of the competitive countries in research. And imagine, so science is a globally competitive activity. Do you think you could attract your best student to say, come here from Japan, come here from India, you in the US, come here and do your career? After all, you're spending your 30s and 40s, the most creative time of your scientific career, with this career uncertainty. So it's a very uncomfortable position. And so I do believe that career structure is a major barrier to attracting top talent. Of course, it's not the only issue. I mean, for example, we've got demographics, but it's at least addressable with policy. Demographics you can't change overnight, but career structure you can at least address. And this is why I'm really optimistic about Japan. Okay, so one of the aspects of funding research is that we all know that in the US, you've got these amazing endowments in these top-class research universities built over decades. And then what about in Japan? You've got the 10 trillion university fund. Actually, Noriko Watanabe, one of my colleagues here today, played a key role in establishing this fund. And look at the size of it. It competes with any of the top universities built over decades. And it's not just funding. In order to receive this funding, you have to apply strict requirements of university reform. And Motoko Kotani, my colleague here on the left, was instrumental in kicking off some of those reforms at Tohoku University, the first university to receive this funding. And then beyond the top national universities, you've got this group of funding called JPEACS, which is to elevate research capabilities at 25 universities around Japan's regions to get this groundswell of regional universities. And then not only that, the Global Startup Campus. This is also Noriko's work, which was to establish these connections between research labs in Japan and this global ecosystem of startups to translate findings into society. And just to give you an idea of what this actually looks like in practice, I just want to talk a little bit about Tohoku University, which is probably one of the most exciting universities in the world at the moment. So over the next 25 years, it's going to restructure the traditional hierarchical career, switching from these hierarchical university labs into 1,800 independent labs. Every person with a faculty position will have an independent lab. Internationalization, English as a working language. Overseas researchers bringing in more, so we reach 30%. And then an innovation park right next to this brand new world-class facility of a synchrotron. And so why is this so important? After all, you might think, well, this is what happens in ivory towers, and it doesn't affect most of us. Well, the reason it matters is because basic research drives economic growth. These are UK and US studies. Return on investment of public funding on basic research is amazing. 40% return after 6 years. You'd love to have that from the stock market. Over 200% in the longer term, 15 to 25 years. The Human Genome Project cost a huge amount of money, $3 billion, generated $1 trillion in economic impact in the US. And over the course of the last 2 millennia, GDP has been flat. We've been farmers toiling away in the fields. But something magical happened about 200 years ago, where basic science discoveries and technology had an impact on society and GDP growth. And this was also the subject of a Nobel Prize in Economics this year. So without basic science, we'd still be in the fields toiling away. This has big impact on the current lifestyles that we have now. So let me close with a few questions for our discussions. What are Japan's true competitive strengths? I mean, I don't mean just aspirational, I mean genuine strengths. What kind of structural barriers are there? What are the hardest ones to overcome? What international models of success can we adapt successfully to a Japanese cultural context? Now, Japan likes to talk about international and global. It's bandied around a lot. What do we actually mean by international and global for Japan? And in that context, what makes Japan attractive to attract international researchers here? So Japan has the capacity, it has the political will, and it has ambitions to turn or recapture that amazing time when we were doing breakthrough research on the systemic matter. And are these scale and pace of reforms enough to meet those ambitions? Thank you very much.
Fantastic, Nick. Thank you very, very much. Now, Noriko, you've got the questions out there. You're dealing with the politicians, you're dealing with the vested interests, you're dealing with the bureaucracy. Tell us a little bit about sort of your reaction and, sort of some, you can pick any of the questions that are up there. Where are Japan's strengths and where are the priorities for the reforms that are actually happening?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick, for the wonderful presentation. Maybe I should start with the first question that what's the true competitive strengths in research? And maybe it's not only about research, but when I was doing as a policymaker, I have been doing lots of project. And one of the projects is the one that it was mentioned in the presentation, the Global Startup Campus. And that is a project that having a real physical place, innovation center, a place having researchers, companies, and VCs, startups in Tokyo. Actually, it's in Shibuya-ku. And to be successful, we need a really good talent, not only from Japan, but outside of Japan. And so we did lots of discussion that what is the real strength and what is the attractive part of Japan. And every time I had a discussion or I made a question to the people who are involved in these projects, and especially from foreign people, what do you think is the strength of Japan? And everyone always say one is a human resource. So this means not only researchers, but also students. We have very good students. They have PhD students, even master's students or students are all very majime and work very hard and also not that expensive. And number two is that we have a very good companies. Big companies. This is also a very attractive part of the Japan, and that means it's not only a financial things, but also there's a lot of companies that have a really good research ability. So that's number two. And number three is it's not about research, but everyone says food, food and culture. That's always comes in best three. But anyhow, so maybe it's research, human resource. and like companies, Japanese very good companies are the most maybe attractive part that can have like attract all foreigners to Japan in research field, I think. And what was it? What's the first question that I
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Don't know, sort of as a.
Maybe, yeah, we have other.
It's always good when we mix science with what actually matters, which is, the food and the quality of the life that we have here in Japan. So theoretically, there shouldn't be sort of any obstacles to attract, top talent. Yes. But in reality, as Nick pointed out, if I am an unsuspecting Indian or an unsuspecting German, coming to Japan, my career path is ultimately going to be very limited at the moment, right? So how do you think Japan can break through that barrier so that I don't just do 1 or 2 years of research, but I actually can build a life here, can build a lab, can actually build, my own team?
Yeah, so everyone always, when we have these kind of discussion, everyone thinks about like language. That's one big barrier, but I feel that, by the way, I have been working at the Ministry of Education, and I was in charge of K-12 English education at the ministry, and I feel that young people are getting a very, the young people's English ability is improving a lot better than now, I think, in our age, I think. So I think English is not the only like a barrier or problem, but that's one big thing, I think. And also, we are not like used to have like diverse like culture, and every time we have this kind of discussion, it goes to the conclusion that it's kind of a culture. And if it comes to culture, it's very difficult to change. But I think Japanese are very comfortable treated as the same in as a neighbors. So it is very difficult to like have different person in the team, or like having someone like treated special. So, but in this, like in research, it doesn't work. So we have to have like diverse people, and also we have to have a really good, high talented people with high like salary. So we have to like treat differently, but we are not good at those kind of things. So we are trying to like break through those things through those policies, such like international research excellence university and other things. So maybe that's to like change the culture, or like be open, more having like openness, and those kind of things that are a big challenge for us, because it is very difficult to change the culture. And yes, that's what we are doing right now. But it is easy to just fund money, but it doesn't work if it's just only funding. We have to change the culture, system, and the mind of the people. And that doesn't mean that we have to like lose Nippon rasa, like Japanese like, but we have at least we have to get to the standard of the international level of the world, that it's a competitive world, international competitive battlefield. So you have to be at least in the network inside of that battlefield, and also you have to know the rule and get used to that culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kotani Sensei, if I may switch to you, you've been in the trenches at Tohoku University, helping to become a catalyst for some of the transformations there. From your experience as a professor and from your experience as a leading administrator trying to guide the future of specific universities, what are your concerns about the structure and about the culture, and what are the areas where to be more competitive globally, Japanese science, the real existing science in a university lab, what needs to be done to change it?
Thank you very much. And so before I answer to your question, I would like to give some kind of position talk, and which Nick asked me. And so I don't know how many of the audience know about the basic plan of science and technology innovation, which is a national strategic plan of science and technology innovation every 5 years. And current one is the sixth one. And from next April, the seventh one is will start. So it means that the discussion is going to converge. And for this, the basic plan, the Minister of Education, Culture, Sports, and Science Technology proposed to propose some initiative, which is called the Kagaku no Saiko. I don't know how it is translated in English, but it's a revitalization of science, and it to reconstruct, rebuild the strengths of research capability. And also so I really appreciate Nick the analysis, which is very accurate, and the cover all the concern which I and all the scientists in Japan share. But I would like to differentiate about the research performance and research quality. So when we look at the top 10% paper, I'm very grateful you asked the definition. And of course, the top 10% paper show some kind of research impact or research performance, but it really doesn't mean the research quality. But still, it's still something, and we really have to address that. And anyway, so I still believe the Japanese research capability is maintained. It is shown that the recent Nobel Prize award, and so, but still we are really losing it for the system error or system reform. So we really need a system reform. And in this revitalization of science, there are 3 pillars. One is the strengthen fundamental research capability. So finally, the government realized the basic science, fundamental research is so important. And so they really encouraged to reconstruct the research environment to really do some kind of a very stronger the basic science. And the second pillar is to promote challenging research, especially by young people. Here it really shows that the government and all the researchers university expected their potential and their capacity. And we would like to help encourage them to really work their own idea. And third one is restructure international competitiveness and oversee dispatch and global collaboration. That today Nick didn't show how many people go abroad and stay for 1 year or 2 years. The number is really decreasing. There are still many people go abroad for short time, but not long time. And so people worried about that very much because Japan used to have a very good international connection, but we are going to lose. And the young researcher, it's not just young researcher, but the young professor, full professor, they don't have a connection anymore. And so before we completely lose this connection, we really encourage international network and international collaboration. This is the 3 pillars. And so the Tohoku University, you asked about the Tohoku University. Tohoku University is very proud and they're happy to be selected the first university as an International University of Research Excellence. I was the Executive Vice President for Research at the proposal team. And we promised 3 commitments. Commitment of impact, commitment of talent, and commitment of the change. And the commitment impact is about research excellence, and the research and innovation. And the talent is about the young people and education. And Tohoku University want to become a gateway to attract all the motivated students who really make their career a very good career at Tohoku University. It's a gateway as a university. And the third one is a change. It's a system reform. the Japanese university and researcher have been struggling very hard. That we have a motivation, we have passion, we have idea, we have everything, but the somehow system doesn't fit the change of the world. And so the researcher go abroad and know how things are changing, but and we have idea how we can adapt the change. But the system, especially for the national university, has some limitation of because of the system. And so this the 10 billion yen for the University Research Endowment Fund is give us the freedom to change and our own idea. So idea is we really need to diversify the funding and budget so that we can decide by our own. So before, it's all the university in Japan, it looks very similar. The biggest size is to University of Tokyo, and the second one is Kyoto, and third one is Tohoku, but everything are very similar because we have no freedom. So finally, we have freedom to choose what are our strengths and what we can do, and we should really encourage promote young researcher to have a strategy and the motivation. That is my hope that they have capacity, they have motivation, and we do.
So for example, if I may follow up on that, at Tohoku University specifically, how did you decide which areas are your areas of strengths? And did you actually, after that review, did you actually cut out some areas where you thought you don't have strengths?
Okay, so I think the core idea of Tohoku University is exactly how we can make use of the young early career researcher. And so the Nick showed the plan is we have now 800 research unit, but it will become 1,800 unit researcher, but we don't increase the number of researcher. We just decompose. So the Japanese university unit is often called a micro pyramid. It's a full professor, associate professor, and the assistant professor. Although they are professor, they don't have independent. And so we just break down, and all the professor, even assistant professor, has its own unit. And so it's a small piece, and so, but they have freedom to make jigsaw puzzle. So you can make a different piece and a different unit. It's a way that now the research is really changing, and the interdisciplinary research is very important to respond to the mission. But now the current traditional Japanese system does not allow this kind of interaction with different people. Now we decompose a small unit, and each unit can choose their own partner within Tohoku University, but within Japan or within the global stage. And so we have much more freedom, but we don't need more research and more budget. We just give them the research environment.
Right. So it sounds like you are actually empowering, right, the assistant or the aspiring professors at a much younger age to actually not just be a kabamochi for the big professor, but to actually do their own research.
Yeah, because they have the ideas. They have motivation. So when I was appointed as executive vice president for research at Tohoku University, it's 5 years ago, the first thing I did is to have a package program for promotion of young researchers. And so, when I started, some faculty member complained, but I showed the data. Their performance is much better than the average Tohoku University. And so we just keep them under the pressure, but now we release their power and idea. So that is what we promise. And I think that is the key of our success at the international university.
So, I mean, at the outset, you sort of walk away and sort of saying, fine, there is the recognition that there is a problem at all levels, at the university level and at the policy level. There is money made available, 10 trillion yen, which is sizable, right, given the endowment of American private universities. And that there is also, on top of top-down funding with the JPEAKS program, that there is groundswell focus on regional diversity and regional models, sort of redefining the way research is done at the place. So let's leave that here for a second and move on to the private sector, right? Sony Corporation, you didn't invent the iPhone, but I think there's plenty of reasons to be optimistic about the reality of Sony's research capability, being very good, being excellent, and actually coming up with products that are, very, very good and have global dominance in the commercial sense. So, Kasahara-san, your reaction to the debate so far and where you see the competitive strengths of Japan actually residing.
Yeah, so maybe I am a kind of very rare career path from now on, because I actually graduated from the university and then joined the Sony headquarters, Sony Corporation, and I was working as an engineer. But after that, I actually, more like for the completely industry, kind of careers. But after that, I also actually have a chance to go abroad, study abroad, and also I actually changed more like for industry to academia, then doing some research. And what I'm doing is actually like a human-computer integration, so it's like a computer science / psychology research. And I think from this discussion, I think also I want to discuss about why is the mobility between industry, private sector, and also academia, because actually it is a quite key point of how we can make it a mobility and also inter-exchange between industry, like academia, and also even in the different university. I guess because of this kind of very unique career, I don't so much suffer from the Nick just show 11 years, very the sad years. I think I have been having very happy 11 years something. But I know in the academia the fields, there are many having some kind of hard time to stabilize the position and also research strategy. But at the same time, because for instance, the postdoc before joining as the PI, sometimes postdoc is a chance to know the network, research network in Japan or domestically, also internationally, we can have some a research network. This is actually very important, after 10 or 20 years, I guess. So from that point of view, of course, doing a postdoc is not just a bad thing, because it's established network. But the point is how we can balance this mobility and also stability, because in the current mainly academia structure is once you did some postdoc, it's like your clock time of the getting tenure is kind of postponed. Right, so it's they have to choose do you want to stabilize your career or do you still want to explore a little bit more? But it cannot be the same time. I guess that is the most challenging point of this career structure. But from that point of view, I guess for instance, Tohoku University, that's a project. It's very brilliant because it allows us to explore and also establish same time. I think that's main a suggestion could be how we can how we can simultaneously achieve some mobility and also stability, I guess. I guess that also it's not like a career stage, but also how we can breach into the private sector, in the industry, and also academia. It's a key point. Because for instance, Sony, I am actually researcher in Sony Computer Science Laboratory. This is a research institute in Sony Group. So we have a kind of a freedom, little bit tightly connected to not only necessarily tightly connected to Sony business, but we are researching for our planet and also our humanity. That's our vision. Then having that kind of research institute in private sector is also quite important. Also, that is kind of important island, Dejima, kind of a island to connecting some other field of even the academia. That is actually also connecting some, headquarters, pure industry division, also academia. So it's more like for connecting some, different island, different continent as an island. And I want to argue that in that case, maybe those kinds of island or kind of the private sector institutes should be included in the career path, and hope that these kind of the career paths also encourage within the, not only the within the university research career structure, but also like a kind of providing some like freedom to like choose the career path. I think that's the main, I don't know, like main comment from this conversation, I think.
Right now, if I'm just to clarify one point, if I'm on a tenure track position at a Japanese public university, can I actually work part-time at the Sony Research Lab?
That is the Sony CSL, Sony Computer Science Laboratory, have a uniqueness. We have a part-time such kind of positions, and this actually strengthens us to connecting industry, also academia. So we actually saw several researchers in the Sony Computer Science Laboratory, and some of researchers are actually having some position in university, of course. And it allows us to be connecting some different, like academies and the private sector university, yes.
Mm-hmm. Nick, to come back to these sort of cultural rigidities, now you were the head of research at OIST, which was sort of given this carte blanche of sort of emulating, the best practices and allowing maximum creativity for the individual research units. But you've spent a lot of time interacting with Japanese established universities, not just Tohoku University, which is obviously a great success story. In your personal experience, what were some of the cultural rigidities that, as it were, upset you the most, or you thought were low-hanging fruits that should be able to be fixed quickly and relatively easy, but in reality just aren't? Sorry, I'm putting you on the spot. If you would like a glass of sake, I'm very happy to give it to you.
Thank you very much for all your comments so far. So if I understood your question, Jesper, you are asking what as someone who's done most of my career in the UK and the US and Europe, coming to Japan 4 years ago, what did I notice? And the first thing I did notice is the mini pyramid structure of the big professor and then the associate and assistant professor. And it's not just about line management. It might sound like that, but often what you find is that in these labs, one of the key points that I highlighted as being necessary is access to equipment, for example. A lot of these equipment are usually held in these big labs. So each lab would have an electron microscope or one of these very, very expensive machines, which is under the control of the big professor. One of the transformations that Motoko was instrumental at Tohoku in enabling was to gather all these machineries and make them common use. So it sounds simple, but there's a huge amount of resistance to give up control of this expensive piece of machinery. But actually, once you've done it, it enables all kinds of things because you can cross-share all kinds of techniques. You'll have experts who are able to perform experiments that you could never do yourself as part of that facility. So that's one enabling factor. The other enabling factor, I do believe, is larger funding. So one of the, we've got a colleague from the Japan Science and Technology Agency here today. I'm going to lobby for funding. But one of the fundings, in Japan, there are lots of effort into early career funding these days. And yesterday we were having dinner with some of these early career researchers. Two things that I noticed. Number one, in the Ministry of Education, in MEX, the definition of early career, wakate, is 45 years or younger. This is well into middle age in my
I think
opinion.
that's designed to make us all feel good.
And so these things have to be pushed earlier. The other thing is the size of the budget. So this one of these flagship projects, at the end of the day, it's only 7 million yen a year.
Right.
The equivalent program, for example, in the EU, the European Research Council, is 7 times that. You get about 50 million yen per year in budget. And that immediately demolished the hierarchical system, because anyone who gets one of these could move anywhere in Europe to any university and set up their own lab. So I think those two aspects would really help transform things.
Yeah. Just to clarify, some of you may not be familiar, the European Research Council is actually an amazing program in the sense of that you get awarded as the professor, right? But you get to choose where you want to spend the money, whether you want to go to Rome University, whether you want to go to Munich, whether you want to go to Rotterdam. So there's a level of funding that empowers the individual researcher, right? But this individual researcher introduces therefore an element of competition amongst all the universities, right? And it's been very, very successful, right? So, no. Watanabe-san, to put you on the spot again. Now, you're taking the leadership there, with the global startup campus, which is a nice plot of land. I believe it was formerly Jietai, right? And,
So yes, it's already transferred to Naikaku, so it's cabinet office. It's under cabinet office, but
right.
yes.
So it was a nice land swap. So the army gets to use its budget elsewhere. But the point being, tell us a little bit about sort of what are some of the ambitions of that global research campus? What are some of the KPIs that you're looking to achieve?
Yes. So I have been working at the ministry. I think for more than 30 years, but I feel that this project is the most exciting but very challenging. And the reason why is that maybe it relates to the discussion that we have, that this is the place that not only for university, it's for it's not only about researchers, or it's not only just about just company, private sectors. It includes everything. So we are trying to get a kind of a place that can involve not only universities but companies, and not only researchers but people working with private sectors, VCs, startups. And the reason why that we thought that we need this is that because first of all we have been hearing that there's a lot of good research in Japan. So we have a good researcher, as I mentioned. We have a good human resource. We have good researchers, good research. But it sometimes there's argued that it doesn't connect it to commercialization, and it doesn't scale it up. And of course, basic research is just basic research. So you don't have to think about that a lot. But we have a lot of research fields, and there are a lot of research fields that can be connected to the society and commercialization. And we are not good at. So in Japanese universities or researchers tend to be said that we're not good at those things. So we are. That's why we don't have an innovation ecosystem. It's just have each things are perfect, like human resource, private company are all good, but it's not connected well, and it cannot work together, or the people cannot move to the university from company and then just come back and or even to the government and then just go back. And there's a lot of reasons, but we thought that it might be better to have some kind of one place that can involve everyone. And that place is not only for researchers, but I just mentioned, it's going to be kind of a research facility, but also we have an office and like place to mingle and like, have lots of areas that can have lots of people and, start things. So that's what is about Global Startup Campus. But this is very challenging, we have to talk with lots of people and ministries, and we are not good at those things. Japanese are not good at things that working together. Especially it's a different field.
Japanese people are not good at working together. Okay.
Working together with the different
for a second, but
different fields.
You love your little vertical hierarchies.
Yes.
It's very interesting what she's alluding to. Just to give you a concrete example, we've had over the last 24 months, basically all the large venture capital firms, looking at Japan, being very excited about this, including some of the big university-affiliated, funds like the MIT Engine, which was here at the Asia Society, and they're ready to commit capital, but the world is big. The minimum ticket, not the minimum ticket, you want to invest $1 billion, you want to invest $1.5 billion. All of them left and couldn't find anything to do here in Japan because exactly as you point out, there is plenty of good science that is being done, but the tech transfer, actually getting from the science into the actual development here, compared, and again, money is global, it's fungible, compared to what you can do anywhere else in the world, right, would take you at least 2 or 3 times as much time to work it out, rather than even France, doing a very good job now at actually tech transfer from deep tech into scalable investment opportunities within a reasonable time frame. Kotani-sensei, you wanted to say something.
So I would like to point out the university are changing, especially the student and researchers. Very recently, the best student, not all of them, but many of our best students want to start up and some kind of venture, and so they have motivation and idea. And Tohoku University do some a little bit entrepreneurship education and opportunity, and a student sees money for these things, and we now finally started Zero Institute for students, and this Zero Institute is supported by the company, not the university, but it's an opportunity for the global company to meet those excellent students with motivation. And so Tohoku University was selected as this first international university of research excellence. And one of the reasons is we have a nanoterrace, which is a big the cyclotron facility, radiation facility, but it's on campus, which is very rare. And also it was not built by the government only, but it's a private, public-private partnership. And so half budget come from government, but half from the company. And so the company bought a license to use. And so it means that they really have to come to Tohoku University every year to use their investment. And it's a great opportunity. Tohoku University Fund, it's a very good opportunity. Just let them use this facility. But when they come, they would like to have a more collaboration work with Tohoku University. It's not just a traditional collaboration, but a more co-creative way. And so we have a system like co-creative research institute, and many companies invest this kind of core research institute, not only to use this core facility, but also the collaborate with university. And so this really changed the culture of the university researchers. So they are more motivated to have a co-creative idea. So it's not just academic interest, but the needs from the company or society, how we can use our the research idea to use the society. That kind of the new movement, a new atmosphere is creating at Tohoku University. It's one of the things we think the success. And so I really appreciate your initiative of Global Startup Campus, and I really looking forward. It's a good start and success.
Yeah, thank you. So you're right. So I think that I feel that the atmosphere that the universities are trying to change, and of course it's changing, like Tohoku University. And I believe that Kokusai Taku is the international research excellence. One of the big kind of push to change, because if you want to change, you need funding and money. That's true. So. And the Tohoku University was the first university to change, I think. So Global Startup Campuses is not only focusing on the big universities that can get all those fundings. And also our final goal is to not need these kind of global startup campus. So at this point, we are trying to show how you collaborate with, but that's maybe it doesn't need forever. Yep. And also one more thing that I want to add is that the reason why that we cannot get those innovative we cannot connect to the commercialization is that I think we don't have enough PhD CEOs. This is one of the problem. I mean, we have there's very few PhD holders in Japan, and also if it's in STEM fields, it's very few, and every people just go to Sony or become a researcher. But now I know it's changing, and we are trying. In the ministry is trying to increase the number of their students, not only from the PhD but from earlier stage. We're trying to change, increase numbers of the students that work that study in at the undergrad level. So we're trying to transform everything. But one of the challenge that we have is that we don't have a good a businessman or a CEO that has a background of that field.
Right.
Yes, I think that's one of the big
that is wonderful. Be careful what you wish for. My home country, Germany, has the highest number of PhD holders who run companies, and it's not doing so well. But maybe they got the wrong PhD. I'd like to open up the floor for any specific question. Kenji.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I'm Kenji. I'm actually on the board of councillors of OIST, but it's a personal question. It's not from OIST standpoint. It's probably a question to Nick, actually. So we know in Japan we have too many stores, too many convenience stores, too many airports, too many things. We don't have enough PhD, as you said. Do we have too many universities in Japan? And I guess the sub-question is, I guess I'm talking to dilution of resources, public and private. In other words, for the same budget, which again is not small, do you believe we can get more bang for the bank if we have fewer universities in Japan?
I think I might risk annoying quite a lot of professors here, but Japan has about 700 universities. Yeah, Japan has 700 universities. In comparison, the UK, with about half the population, has about 100. So I think those numbers speak to something. Of course, not all the universities are research universities and so on. So let's put that aside. So I think the answer there is potentially, yeah. On the resource distribution, I think the total amount of funding that goes into R&D in Japan is quite high. It's about 3.5% of GDP. The publicly funded bit is very small compared with other countries. Most of the funding is in the private sector. It stays in the private sector. You get more bang for your buck if you increase, Watanabe-san, the funding from the public sector, because not only do you get bigger returns, you also bring in more funding from the private sector. This has been demonstrated in the UK, in the US, and so on. In terms of the distribution, again, at the risk of upsetting some people, I do believe that in Japan there is it's a cultural point. There is a tendency to spread the money quite thinly, equally. Whereas, for example, in the UK, and I mean the US is very much an example of this, you back winners. And that is a societal choice, of course, but if you've got a limited budget, as I said, some of that budget could be a bit bigger, for example, for the early career scientists.
Thank you. I'm Wei Di. I'm a co-founder of a deep tech AI startup. Actually, I have questions specifically to Watanabe-san and Kotani-san, because our startup, besides me, the other three co-founders are all academic professors and PhD in the STEM field. One is actually from Tohoku University and two others with National Research Lab as research professors. And the big challenge we're facing, because of their Komugin, as professor identity, there's limitation on shares they could take and a lot of additional approval process inside the institute. They couldn't be the single CEO. They have to find the co-CEO and all kinds of restriction. And actually, we already get investment from top-tier US Silicon Valley-based investor. And even in Japan, there's an accelerator program backed by the government support. But it's capital is waiting from the US try to come in, but all the process here in Japan is slowing down loads. So I wonder, for example, institute like Startup Campus or future, if you see any possibility, Japan government might be setting up supporting agency to help those professors who want to be co-founder and actually bring their academic work into the real world application to make more real social and business impact. So, yeah, that's my question. I really echo the pinpoints and challenge that Watanabe-san was sharing earlier.
So your question is that how you can speed up the procedures inside university, you mean, or
Yeah, I wonder if there's do you see any trend or possibilities the university or government
allowed to become rich? That's really what she's asking. By actually being compensated in shares and in share options.
So you wanted to be the professors want? Is that the question that can professor become a CEO?
They actually, I think, not even CEO, even just being a yakuin or taking active role in the startup is being limited. They could only kind of be a advisor and limit to their Kengyo policy and all those kind of restrictions.
Okay, so that's up to each universities.
Right.
So there are some universities that allows to become, of course, CEO or accept. And of course, you have to think about conflict of interest. That's very important. But the rules to make of conflict of interest is it depends on each university. So I think you are working at a kind of strict university, maybe? You said
well, not me, but I think there's one more thing about the professor with a public institute is their komuin in Japanese, like a public servant, right? So they're actually, komuin. So they're actually, in addition to the academic role, they're kind of having additional identity restriction, right? So if those are not changing, in the future, what they could do in the startup field is still gonna be very limited.
Okay, but yeah, so it's like a repeating, but it's up to the university or the organization. But of course, we have to. So it tends to be traditional universities tend to be more conservative about those things. But new not that kind of universities are always having more free rules, I think. So, but you're right. So we have to show how, maybe we can say we can do this, or it's up to the university, but you can do this, or maybe we can show or share more good examples to the universities through Global Startup Campus. That might be one of them.
Yeah.
I think Tohoku University is much more flexible compared to other university. I'm sorry, but so first of all, even I take a lot of responsibility of the committee of mixed, and so it's the grade, the selection of research grant, etc. And in Tohoku University, it is admitted, including my capacity of a professor. So I can accept as many as that kind of role in the governmental committee and the role. And also in the company, especially the venture company or other collaborative company, we do need a kind of a COI, the examination, and we have to report what kind of the other job we take and what kind of responsibility we have and how much money we have. And there are some kind of limitation, but it can be reduced, it can be modified when you reply. So there are some kind of limitation for the average people. And so, but if you really need to make the much more responsibility or much more money you can get from the company, you can just report, and it should be examined because we are a kind of public officer. But it's not limited. It's just two steps.
So it's not a written rule; it's a convention. And so you have to lobby harder.
So it's a written rule, so there are limitations, but you can just go through.
But I think what is very interesting is, and this is obviously where, particularly the United States, but even, if you look at Germany and BioNTech, for example, with the corona virus, sort of the fluidity between research and corporates, the fluidity between being on a research or professor's salary at a university and being able to engage in the private sector, is much, much higher elsewhere in the world than it is in Japan. I mean, there was this unwritten rule when I joined the board of OIST. There was this unwritten rule that, no professor is allowed to earn more than the president of the university. Unwritten rule, right? But as you know, unwritten rules are what make, Japanese sushi so delicious. Any other question, please?
Christian Schmitz, PDIE, Purpose-Driven Innovation Ecosystem. I was sitting in New York in a family office event, and I was also sitting yesterday with David Wilson and his girlfriend. He's from the family which founded basically James Bond franchise. And we were talking about actually the younger generation. So what's driving the younger generation, and that especially here in Japan, interest in STEM, so science, is rather low actually with the younger generation, and they are a little bit maybe stuck into passive consumption of gaming and smartphones. So I want to ask how we can get this younger generation more excited and more enthusiastic about science. And actually we had a person from the Smithsonian Institute who was a former astronaut. And what she said is they go into the countryside in the US and they bring these telescopes to the schools. And that even she herself, she came to science because she had this encounter with a telescope when she was in elementary school. So what can be done, or what could be motivating factors for the younger generation, so that we are talking about the present right now, but the future also is very important. And so what could Japan do in order to motivate the younger generation and the existing institutes? How can you bring this kind of enthusiasm?
Science is sexy. Shun.
I think that's a very key question about generating next generation of the science and technology in Japan, also over the world. I guess the one key point is how we can create obsession for curiosity of the science and technology, how we can provide some opportunity for younger generation. And then, of course, me myself is actually born in the Japan, and then in my home country, they have a science museum. is actually impact a lot to my career actually. So like many of you also like having some similar experience, but I think like of course right now all information, all media looks could be accessible for anyone. It's more like a uniformity, like a point that we have a YouTube, we have a TikTok, so many media or information goes through those media, but it actually looks like a very optimistic for giving some new curiosity or information for younger generation, but it's actually very biased, unfortunately. So I think now the key point is like how we can provide more meaningful and also like engaging experience to the younger generation. Maybe even for instance, like like right now, the AI generated content is actually very useful for transforming the very high, like cutting edge paper into very readable, very easy document for even the younger generation. I think sometimes, like for instance, if we want to know about new, the research field which is not familiar with me, but like we can also read these very difficult paper with AI aided like media. I think that's like how we can using those new AI technology provide more interactive engagement media into younger generation. That is, I think, like a huge potential. And then I think if it's working well, is also like dramatically changing the current educational system, I guess. Because like if somebody having younger generation having a more like obsession or a very high curiosity of some like higher education, we can provide a lot more opportunity by using some kind of the AI technology, I guess. I think that's my like a hope and also like my source, I think.
Kotani-san, you have a comment?
Of course, it's very important, and there are many outreach activities, and also some of the science museum, like JST has a Miraikan, which is very interesting place to visit, and even the small kids. So the current special session is about the quantum computer, and even the small kids that can play with this exhibition to understand what is quantum computer, and so there are such kind of activities, and also the university do a lot of things for the outreach and public awareness, and also there are SSH, the super science high schools. They have a lot of the opportunity to learn advanced science in high school and give some presentation in English and go abroad. But there are some information gap between the people who have access to the information, and also there are very few people, many people do not know the existence. And so I really hope that as the Kasahara-san said, the YouTube and also social media will change this kind of situation, that there are a big gap between those students who have access to the information and so on.
It's interesting, right? Because I think at the end of the day, you need a success story. You cannot be what you cannot see. And, when you've got Elon Musk landing, whatever you think of Elon Musk, when he's landing a rocket on a pinpoint, I think that alone created about, 1 million engineers, right, in the world, because boys and girls just look at this and say, wow, this is very cool. So Japan needs a success story. Hopefully the next generation is going to get there. Sawako, I think there's somebody from cyberspace.
Yes. So this actually brings us back to the present, but the question is, this person is asking, I have noticed some tendency for top universities in Japan, at least Todai and Kyodai, to hire their own PhD graduates as faculty. Is there a move to diversify ideas in a university by hiring graduates from other universities instead?
I like the way that everybody on the panel got a little smirk on their face. Who would like to take this one? Kotani-sensei. Tohoku only hires Tohoku?
No, this in-house breeding is a key challenge, especially University of Tokyo and Kyoto. They have such an excellent student, excellent researcher, and so they would like to stay their own. But to diversify, we really need more diversified the career, and especially we need to open the market to global. So we don't hire only the Japanese, but or the researcher who study in Japan, but also we open the market to global. And so we would like to hire more people from many different sources.
Nick.
I think a common thread coming through in this question and others is the point about mobility. And mobility between universities, mobility between universities and industry, and then also with different countries. And I think we really need to encourage it, especially at an early career stage where you don't have ties, you don't have responsibilities or families and so on. It's your chance to go and spread your wings and try something new. And I think that this key thing about mobility is so important in order to keep Japanese science fresh.
It's interesting, right? Because I mean, again, Gemba no Hanashi, right? For example, at OIST, right? Once you leave the Japanese system and you join the non-Japanese system, you basically never go back. Right? I mean, that's at least the perception. There will be some young man, some young woman who will break through this and make it back into Todai. But right now, the rigidities, basically like everything else in Japan, this is a membership system rather than a meritocracy-based system, right? And it doesn't reward superstars. It rewards conformity. And science is about a lot of things, but it's not about conformity. In fact, it's the eccentric, crazy guys and girls, who make the path-breaking stuff happening.
Jenny Corbett, and I'm from the Australian National University and Oxford and have been a visitor at the University of Tokyo. And I wanted to say on this last point that, international universities typically have a rule that they won't hire their own graduates. That's the sort of starting point. My sense is that things are changing in Japan. But I did want to stress something that it's come up a couple of times, but I think it should be more central. So, Nick, in your rundown of all the stats about where Japan is beginning to fall behind, the thing you didn't mention is about international collaborations, where Japan starts low and doesn't go anywhere. And I think that the discussion has sort of implied that it would be nice to have a bit more international collaboration, but it's kind of an extra, nice to have, but not central. But actually, if you think about research as a global supply chain issue, and Japan is having this problem that, it's aging, it has too few PhDs, its students won't go abroad. I think that maybe there needs to be a radical rethink where the central change that should be happening in Japanese universities is that international collaborative research should be the core ambition, because you don't need foreigners to come here forever. You need them to come here for 3 or 4 years, and you need Japanese researchers to go abroad for 3 or 4 years, do a project, move on, build the networks that way. And there are some starts. JSPS program is brilliant at bringing people here, but there needs to be matching funding from other countries taking Japanese elsewhere. I just wonder whether in your universities, where it sounds like there are fantastic radical ideas coming up, is there any sense in the universities or in the policy world that this kind of radical thinking is coming?
International Research University of Excellence is that concept. It's definitely that concept. So this project is totally different, very unique from other projects. It is a huge amount of funding. For example, Tohoku University accepted 15 billion yen for the first year, and it will increase. And it's going to be funded for 25 years. That's amazing. That's not the kind of normal one. And also, as Kotani Sensei just mentioned, that you can use it very flexible, and like ministry will say like, hey, don't use this or that. Also, they have to make their own strategy and use those money for like 25 years. And when we started to think about this Kokusai Takuya's International Research University Excellence, we said that we definitely have to be international university, international excellence, right? Not national excellence. Because we have a lot, like Todai is a nice university, we know it. Kyodai is nice, I know it, Tohoku of course, we know it. But we want like international level, international world top level university. And to be that, you have to be, internationalized, because it's a world kind of, field. So we definitely set. We won't say like we won't like micromanage, but we clearly said that you have to set the goal how you get to be internationalized. That means that you get high talented people not only inside Japan but of course outside of Japan. So yes, so I feel like Tohoku University will change, and then if one university changes, other will change, I believe.
What is interesting, I completely echo your point. I will give you a 30 seconds anecdote. I had the pleasure 2 months ago of visiting the new Huawei research campus in China. There is 30,000 young men and women, of which 82% of them have a PhD from America, Britain, Germany, or Japan. The fire is very hot there. And it's interesting when we asked the guy, it was a PR show, obviously, when we asked the guy, well, how is your own education system? And he said, oh, it's getting better, but we still need the international spark. So we're like, wow. And this to your point, because again, this is not Sakaku, this is not an island, this is a competitive business. You're doing science. There is billions of dollars being thrown at science research. It's not just AI, right? There is a lot, whether you look at, sort of the fundamentals on the health sciences, right? Everywhere in the basic sciences, the race is on, and Japan is under a lot of pressure.
So I have a question that sort of builds upon your question. It's about technology transfer. I know we talked a lot about startups, but I think technology transfer is quite an easy way to get a lot of money for whatever research you've created. I was at Todai doing my master's, and I did speak to the technology licensing office and asked them what are their strategies for commercializing and selling, and they said they literally have a phone book, or like they have a contact book of different companies, and when they patent something or trademark something, they go through their phone book and kind of search like that, which I thought was incredibly inefficient. This is Todai, I think it's probably the largest licensing office. If you look at MIT licensing office, it's huge, it's almost like its own corporation. So I was wondering, is there anything that I'm not aware of in terms of the technology licensing procedures in Japan coming from universities? Because this is something that I actually wrote my thesis on, so I'd like to just know a little bit more. Thanks.
This is, again, a very important part that was included in this international research excellence. So we tried to change, having internationalization, so having a really good talent outside of Japan. And number two is diversifying the funding. And that means not only getting broad grant or funding from the government, but of course outside of the university, so like companies or like having like startups. And so we set the goal. We set the standard that to ask them to set a goal how you can increase the number of startups or like diversifying the funding. And so there were lots of universities that had a real change of their strategy to to get the funding from the government. I mean, kokusai takutsu. So and to do that, they need more funding, because you have to hire people who can know about the patent and can talk with the business side. So I think Tohoku University also had a good plan and strategy, that having those kind of people, hiring those peoples and changing the rules. And so that's also a very important part that was included in the Tokusai Takutsu project.
So what is interesting, just for 30 seconds, the fact that you've got now a venture capital ecosystem, which you didn't have, literally 5 or even, 5 years ago, right? Now you do have funds specifically focused on deep tech. And as a result of that, you've got the university's feet being held to the fire, because the IP delineation in Japan is a little iffy, right? Is it me, the professor, who owns it? Is the university that owns it? What is the delineation if there is a profit? This needs to be worked out on a case-by-case basis. But I think the good thing, and I think also in conclusion of this excellent panel, right, is there's a recognition of what the problems are. There is, mobilization of resources from both the public sector, as well as a focus on it shouldn't just be the public sector, it should be public-private partnerships. There should be an encouragement to break open some of the rigid verticals and hierarchies within the universities. And that's up to each and every university to dictate, rather than the Mombusho telling you this is the way it ought to be done. So you've got Tohoku University as a great example. You've got another university that is dragging its feet, but the competition is building out. And the fact that you do have venture capital money now, and these guys are in it for the money. And if you're in it for the money, you will press the lazy, behind the time, tech transfer department of the university. You will press the issue. And that, I think, is where a virtuous cycle is starting. It's not Silicon Valley. It's not the Max Planck Institute. It cannot be, because it starts from behind. But I think that the momentum and the potential for a renaissance of Japanese science, and not just science for science sake, not just science for Sony's sake, but science for overall society's change and for the economy. I think that's where we are at a very, very interesting and high potential inflection point here in Japan. So if you're angry at the Todai Technology Department, call them up and call them out. Thank you very much. I want to thank, the excellent panel. I want to thank the audience here.